So we've got a little BattleTech Q&A here. Fritz, BattleTech weapons. They seem to miss all the time. Half the game is running around and I'm just missing, and it's a buzzkill, and the game's taking forever. So let's build a checklist, and as always, the secret weapon, you guys in the comments, let's build this checklist and try to understand how to hit with BattleTech weapons. It is an easy theory. I mean, you understand the game. I've got my Stompy robot. You have your Stompy robot. If I can hit you with energy weapons, ballistic weapons, and punch you quicker than you can do that to me, I'm going to win the game. Of course, layered over by the mission parameters. But how that is done, there's a finesse with it. So anytime you roll dice, essentially for BattleTech, and this is true of any war game, there's an element of random. You have parameters that you try to get the best odds in your favor, but even with the best odds, you can still miss. Likewise, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can, before you even do the calculations, you're like, look, I know I need 12s to hit. You never know. You might roll a 12. What are the odds of it? Low, but in that probability of the universe, this might be your moment to roll a 12. So we have certain expectations that things can happen, but anytime you roll dice, there's a chance that you will miss or that you will be successful. How do we control the random? And then likewise with our opponent, how do we force the random on them? So rule number 1 in BattleTech, when you are in range, you start shooting. That's like Wargaming 101. I need 12s to hit you with my LRM packs. I'm going to take that shot for 2 reasons. First reason is, like I just said, I might get lucky. Second reason is that everyone has a plan until they get hit. There's a difference in BattleTech, and there's a difference in a war game. There's a difference in a strategy game where you're moving up and you're positioning. As soon as you come under fire, mentally, as a mech commander, we're standing over the table. I'm shooting at you now. So now you're like, okay, I got to figure out what to do with my Battlemaster here because Fritz is laying down the LRMs. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that light mech because now he's shooting LRMs at it. And even though he's going to need 12s to hit because of range and I'm moving fast, if he does hit, I'm smoked. Do I redeploy? It's forcing you to make decisions on a unit. And if I can divide your attention across multiple points, tactically, that's good. So when you're in range, you start shooting. But you need to be able to bring those modifiers down. BattleTech is a game of dueling modifiers. And what I mean by that is I control in that calculation to figure out what to hit. Yes, there's, the Mech Warrior skill is the base, but the range and my movement, whether I walk, run, or jump, is going to, along with the weapon profile, is going to give me the base number. That's that base number. Then it's going to either continue up. It can only, there's the base number. It can only go up from there. What I mean by that is if my base number to hit is a 5, and now I have heat issues, maybe that bumps it up to a 6. If you are moving, how many hexes did you move? Does that bump it up to an 8, 9, or 10? Is there some cover? Is that now 11? So whatever my base number is, then we add on your opponent, or I should say the target's base number. So they're dueling. You're trying to keep that number down as low as possible. So an example of being low. I am 3 hexes away from you. You don't move for whatever reason. I choose not to move. We are at short range, or if it's machine guns, long range, but let's say it's medium lasers. I'm going to just hit you with my medium lasers. I am at short range. That means, base skill, I need 4s or higher to hit you. I haven't moved, so I'm not stacking +1. I did not run, I'm not stacking +2. You haven't moved, so you're not stacking +2, +3, +4 for hexes moved. And there's nothing between us. There's just space, so no cover modifiers, or you're not obscured from that perspective. So that's what I want to control. I want to bring my modifiers down. You're going to bring your modifiers up. How do we control that? Well, the number one way in BattleTech is get close. There's a big jump if you look short range, medium range, long range. Put minimums aside for a second. That's the biggest jump in how things operate. And it kind of makes sense from the narrative. These are massive, massive stompy robots, but they're not like Pacific Rim type robots with that mobility. They move very, very fast. If you look at how fast in the tech manuals mechs can move, they do. And they're big targets. But even being a little bit clunky at long range, you're moving, they're moving, and the mech is trying to take cover. You've got targeting systems. You've got older technology. You've got technology that doesn't necessarily work. If you look at the narrative, literally there are the same mechs, in a lance or part of a battle group, but one mech has an advanced targeting system because it hasn't been cannibalized and they've been able to maintain it. Another one has a downgraded targeting system. Another one's using iron sights. It represents the fact that this is advanced technology that we can't even dream of, but it's limited advanced technology. It's kind of retro tech. But the mechs do move fast, and trying to hit something at long range, true to life, is very, very difficult to do. So it makes sense at long range that you really need those starting modifiers very, very high. Get as close as you can, as fast as you can, and start pouring it on. But now it depends on the mech. Longbow is not getting close. Really, really close. Close for the range band, I could say. Likewise, when you get close to an opposing mech and put them in danger, you put yourself in danger. Let's say Battlemaster versus Battlemaster. At long range, we're going to be shooting the PPCs. Then we get closer, we're going to then jump in with the medium lasers. Maybe the PPCs too. PPC. When we get really close, we're going to switch off the PPC to conserve heat even before we hit minimums. And now I'm going to hit you with the lasers and the short-range missiles. When I get really close, lasers, short-range missiles, machine guns. You get closer, more weapons come into range for you and your opponent. So, of course, there's a tactical level of, do you try to stay out of a firing arc? This is where initiative becomes important because we're starting to face each other. But I win initiative, and through moving my pieces, you are forced to move your Battlemaster before I move mine. Now, if you're conservative, maybe you back up, put your back against a building or terrain, or go defensive. But maybe I can sidestep and get to the side because there's two targets. I have two mechs, and I'm trying to attack you from two angles. There's tactics that you want to employ. But generally, the first thing is, if you're missing all the time, you got to get close. You got to get into that optimal bracket. The next, risk versus reward, and this depends on the mech classes. Movement. Walking versus running. Walking versus running. For you to shoot. Now, the more hexes you move, whether that's walking or running, that increases your modifier, your defensive modifier. Right now, we're just looking at about hitting. We'll kind of look at the defensive side in the next vlog. But in exploring that, there is a big difference between walking and running. So if I can walk instead of run, I'm going to do that. If I can stand still, I'm going to do that. Now, you stand still, you're not moving at all. You got no penalty for that in terms of your base to hit, but you're going to be getting penalties when your opponent shoots at you. So can you negate that by being in cover? Can you negate that through positioning? I mean, it's not the easiest thing to do, but again, keeping our starting number, because that's the only thing we can truly control, keeping our starting number down as much as possible. The final piece is redundancy. Redundancy in Battletech is having multiples of the same weapon system being able to shoot. It's just simple. If I shoot my long-range missiles at you and I'm a grasshopper and I'm shooting the skull missiles at you, the head missiles, I have one chance to hit. If I'm a longbow, forget for a moment that 5 packs and 10 packs, 20 packs, 15. If I'm a longbow and I shoot my long-range missiles because we're in range, I've got 2 20 packs and 2 5s. If I shoot one medium laser at you because I'm a locust, that's vastly different than if I have a mech with 4 or 5 medium lasers. There is a vast, vast difference, but ideally, you pick a mech that has redundancy with the same weapons and the same range brackets. Now, you can't do that with a light mech always because you're limited by the tonnage. They're scouts, they're kind of skirmishers, completely different. Although there are light mechs that will mount multiple medium lasers or multiple of the same weapon profiles. But if we jump into mediums, heavies, and assaults, now you've got some bite. Now you've got some tonnage to do different things. And you want to look to say, when does it enter that range bracket? Going back to the Battlemaster, Battlemaster only has one long range PPC. So if I stay, and that's okay, and I want that, because as I'm walking in with the Battlemaster, I've got something at long range. I've got some dice, I'm going to take it. But am I really going to hit it that long range? Again, probably not, but you know what? I've got a PPC shooting at you. You need to focus on that. But now as I close, what is the optimal range for the mech? You have to look and say, what optimal range does it look and work at? Battlemaster works at medium laser range or closer, SRM range, all those overlaying brackets. When I get to that and I maintain that, I have the redundancy. I have multiple chances of hitting you. I'm not just firing one weapon. I'm firing 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, modified by how much I want to push the heat. So one of the reasons that you also miss a lot in Battletech is you take a mech that operates at a certain range. Again, the Battlemaster. If I just stay back with the Battlemaster at PPC range, I am going to miss all the time. I'm not using my battle value. I'm not using all the weapon systems that I paid for and that I have and that I need to use. So keep your modifiers down, close as fast as you can, get into range, and look at the range that your mech excels at and operate at that range, whether it's long range, super short range, multiple range overlaps. When you do that, it starts to make the game go much, much quicker. On a side note, and then I'm going to turn over to you guys in the comments for the mech exploration and the Tactica, if you do want to speed up your game of Battletech, it's a narrative. There's a lot of different ways to play the rules. I mean, we looked at force withdrawal, but the main way to do it is increase the skill of your mech warrior. You know, the game assumes, and the game of Armored Combat assumes with kind of a base, they're not a new recruit, but they're not super elite forces. You know, they've got some experience. They've fought. They're that average mech warrior. Nothing says you can't bump the stats. Or decrease the stats, I should say, and bumping them by decreasing, and now play an elite force. You could take the same mechs from that Game of Armored Combat starter set and make 2 lances and say, you know what, this is an elite versus elite operation, an elite fighting force, or light mechs that could just run around and miss you all the time because you're fighting light mechs versus light mechs, and everybody's missing like crazy because you only have 1 or 2 weapons to shoot. Everyone's moving massive hexes. You need 10s and 11s to hit. Let's say it's an elite recon force. Jack up that mech warrior. Be fair, do it on both sides. That will speed the game up, and that will ensure that you hit. On a side note, that's why if you're playing in campaign mode, certain things that you want to start jacking up depends on the mech. When my support mechs, generally if it's a average mech, it's not a dedicated mech, I want to jack up my gunnery. I want to be able to hit you more. If it's a support mech, I'm playing a blackjack, a Jaeger mech, a longbow, I want gunnery. If it's a heavy brawler assault type mech where I'm going to try and get in close and utilize multiple weapons, yes, I want the weapons skill, the ability to hit, but the piloting skill is equally important because I'm going to get up and be kicking you and punching you and having that aspect. So there are times based on the mech where you want to go in the opposite direction. It is all about hitting, but it isn't always all about hitting.